From the UCLA Labor Center in KPFK, you're listening to Rework. I'm Saba Wahid.
And I'm Stephanie Ritopper.
So this week we're talking about food. It has an enormous capacity to transport you through its smells and flavors. No matter where you're coming from, you can find that hole-in-the-wall spot that cooks the food just like they did in your hometown.
Especially in Los Angeles. Depending on what neighborhood, what street, what corner, you can find yourself traveling the world through food. And I'd say the other interesting piece is that here you have immigrants from all over the world who are owning and working in restaurants. And so, in a city like LA where Latinos work in many of the restaurants' kitchens, you actually have people from Mexico and Central America who can cook foods from all over the world. Japanese food, Chinese food, Indian food. Food from all over the world, but it's so different from the place that they grew up. But then there's the dark side of the restaurants. For those of us sitting in a restaurant eating, we may not even be aware of what's happening around us. What's it like for those working in the restaurant, and how are they being treated? And so that's the question that we're talking about today. What happens behind the kitchen door? In today's episode, we're going to talk with Heriberto Zamora, who worked in the kitchen of one of the most expensive restaurants in the country. In the intimate dining room of Urasawa restaurant, customers gasp in enjoyment as each refined plate arrives to the table. Critics call this curated dinner exquisitely seasonal. And it's true. The chef, Hiroyuki Urasawa, flies many of the ingredients straight from Japan earlier that day. A meal can stretch to 3 hours, and dishes come dotted with caviar and 24-karat gold flakes. The sashimi arrives last on a kind of carved ice stage, glowing. Around the sushi bar, businessmen, politicians, and celebrities toast glasses of exquisite sake. Many have deemed Urasawa a once-in-a-lifetime experience. A typical bill for 2 people easily tops over $1,000. So imagine if you were to follow one of these plates back to the kitchen. There you'll find a completely different scene. It's a hectic kitchen with chefs calling out orders in a mix of Japanese, English, and Spanish. Among the workers in the back, you'll find Heriberto Zamora chopping vegetables, skillfully preparing fish. He's originally from Oaxaca, Mexico. Heriberto landed a job at Urasawa, really by accident. A relative worked there and let him know that they were looking to hire someone. Since Heriberto needed a job, he decided to take it. Though at the time, he knew nothing about cooking at all.
Empecé de cero prácticamente. Fueron como 6 meses que estuve lavando platos, solo a eso.
I practically started from zero. There were about 6 months where I was washing dishes, just doing that, and then I started cutting vegetables, and then finally cooking. In the end, they gave me the opportunity to deliver food to the tables. I was even dressed up in Japanese clothing, and I had to take out dishes. At the beginning, I was not used to this, and the soups would be shaking. I even would cause accidents. The soups would end up on the floor. The most challenging part is to get over your nerves, realizing that you're rubbing elbows with famous artists and you feel like uncomfortable. The fact that I wasn't used to those type of people, well, it's hard to see different races, different languages, or just knowing that someone is famous. So there you are walking out, but you're nervous. You're supposed to be watching the food, but instead you start looking the other way, and that's when you lose it.
Before working at Urasawa, he had never even tried Japanese food.
Al principio, comer sashimi para mí era bastante difícil.
At first, for me, eating sashimi was pretty difficult. But with time, I got more and more accustomed to it. A lot of people would be surprised to see me. They would say, "You eat that?" Well, yeah. I'd say, "I do." "But you're Latino." And I would say, "What does that have to do with anything?"
So what was food like in the small town in Oaxaca, Mexico, where Heriberto grew up?
Lo más típico son las clayudas.
The most traditional are tlayudas, very, very traditional Oaxacan food. It's a big tortilla and it's fried on very low heat so that it doesn't dry out. And when you cook it, you can add beans, pork, cheese, any meat you like, chorizo, tasajo, cecinas of different kinds, really whatever you like. Yeah, it was nice because it was 5 of us, 5 brothers. We all sat to eat together at the same time, and it's something that you do miss sometimes. Even though it's impossible for us to get together now, everyone is in different places.
But he never had dreams of being a chef. Food was never his thing. Instead, he was a rebel. He liked to party with friends.
La fiesta de mi pueblo se celebra el 24 de junio.
The holiday we celebrate in my town on the 24th of June, Guelaguetza, is what they call it in Oaxaca. There are 4 days of festivities.
Se empieza con recibimientos de banda, un día y en la noche es el paseo de calendas.
You start off with a welcome with a musical band, and at night there's a procession, and there are fireworks around all the castles. When that's over, there are basketball and soccer tournaments. And at night, well, there are dances. Oaxaca is a pachanguero state, a state that likes to have a good time. There are tons of little towns. Every town is about 15 minutes away from the next. One little town here, another little town there. So if there's a party one week in one little town, like 8 days later, another town has a little party. So you could go from one town to the next and just keep the party going.
Soon it came time for Heriberto to work, and that's when he decided to go to the U.S.
De ahí llegué aquí y pues se me hizo muy como la ciudad, salir de un pueblo y de repente llegar a una ciudad es bastante sorprendido, pues no sabes ni para dónde vas a caminar y todo. Pues más que nada.
From there, I arrived here, and well, I thought the city was, I don't know, coming from a small town, the big city takes you by surprise. You don't even know which direction to start walking in. More than anything, I wasn't used to the kind of people there are here. The thing that was the hardest for me was learning the language, because sometimes I wanted to buy something and I wouldn't even know what to say. So it was hard. In a small town, you know where you're going and where each person lives, and when you get here, you practically know nothing.
Los Angeles was a far cry from the small town where Heriberto grew up. In Oaxaca, he knew each street like the back of his hand. Just walking around town, it was easy to run into people he knew. Los Angeles, that was another world altogether. It was a huge, sprawling city, and to get around, Heriberto had to learn the weaving, complex bus system that stretched miles across the city.
And somehow, coming from such a small town, Heriberto ended up at one of the most prestigious restaurants in the city. It was a high-pressure environment.
Se llenan los locales, entonces hay bastante movimiento.
The restaurants get filled up and there's a lot of movement, like when you have different menus. When you're cooking, if it's Japanese food, you have the tempura in oil, veggie soups, or something frying in the pans, so you have to keep your eye on those 3 things at once. It's a lot. Usually things get easier when you do them on a regular basis, but otherwise you burn one thing, try to take care of another thing, and you lose all 3 things at once. So it's a routine more than anything, and you have to learn to overcome that.
Heriberto was quick to learn, and he picked up skills rapidly. After a while, the chefs had him covering multiple stations. He learned to identify every type of fish and seafood in both English and Japanese. He was preparing even the most complex and sophisticated Japanese dishes. At about this time, Urasawa encouraged him to purchase his own set of knives. According to the chef, the restaurant's knives were too expensive for Heriberto to handle, and if he wanted to pick up more skills, he had to spring for them.
Mi paquete prácticamente lo fui comprando uno por uno.
For my set, I practically bought them one by one. There was a chef there that apparently liked my work because he said, I'm going to give this knife to you, but help me do some things first. And so the first one I got was a gift. But then it gave out on me. Well, using it so much, it wore down. And when he was leaving for a restaurant in San Francisco called French Laundry, he said, "Look, I'm leaving and I'm selling my knives." And so I said to him, "Sell me that one knife that I need." And he said, "Just take me out to dinner and it's yours." And so we all went out to dinner along with the other workers, and that was how I got another one of my knives. That was one of them. But from there, I started buying the rest. They were anywhere from $180 to $200, even $300. All of the equipment I needed, stones to sharpen them, everything. I have approximately $800 to $1,000 just in knives.
$1,000 is a lot of money for knives for anyone, but for Heriberto, it was particularly steep. While each meal brought in thousands of dollars, he was making just $9 an hour after a promotion. 6 years after working at the restaurant, he was bringing in just $11.50 an hour. In fact, there were a lot of things that were not exactly right.
Pues un restaurante básicamente está dividido en estaciones que le llaman. Si es cocinero, es cocinero. Si es preparador, preparador. Si es cortador, cortador nada más. Dishwasher, a lo que es. Entonces un restaurante debe ser dividido en esa
a restaurant is divided basically into what they call stations. If you're a cook, you cook. If you're chopping vegetables, you chop vegetables. If you're a dishwasher, that's all you're supposed to do. So a restaurant should be divided in that way, but many owners don't respect that system. To save money, they give people two stations. So let's say the guy was making $9.50 before. They just tell him, "We're going to give you $10 and you cover both stations." Right there, they're practically saving $10 with only 50 cents or $1 more. In reality, a restaurant is not supposed to be like that. Urasawa is a restaurant with a very big kitchen, but in reality, they have very little personnel. If you're the one cooking, you have to prepare everything, and you are going to cook for the meal.
La culpa quizás fue mía, el demostrarles a ellos que tenía talento.
Maybe it was my fault. I was trying to show them that I had talent, so they took advantage of that. Because I could do it, they stopped hiring anyone else. I was washing dishes, chopping vegetables, and cooking. It was really, it was my fault. That was when they took advantage of me the most.
On top of working multiple stations, the owner required workers to work 12 to 14-hour shifts. Heriberto would arrive at 11 a.m. and then have to stay as late as midnight, or even 1 a.m. For the workers in the back of the house, this was a given, just a part of working there. The waiters and the head chef arrived later in the afternoon. This meant that eventually Heriberto was working 60 hours a week with no overtime pay. But the worst was when the chef would lash out with verbal threats. It was common to hear Mr. Urasawa yelling at employees of every ethnicity, calling them baka, Japanese for stupid. This was sometimes over the smallest mistake on the plate.
El trabajo es pues, la cocina. Al final de cuentas, pues fue la cocina que terminó gustándome.
In the end, it was cooking that I liked the most because it was an enjoyable routine. I mean, they did change the menu sometimes, but I already knew how to cook everything, so it wasn't hard for me anymore. It was hard when we made mistakes and had the chef on our backs, yelling at us or getting angry at us all the time. He would accuse us all the time, and that's when I started disliking working there. And that mistake would sometimes turn into a big problem. Like, if there was a mistake on the plate, he would say that other plates, which had no mistakes, had them, just to blame us. I knew it wasn't my fault. I would say so, but he wouldn't let down.
And then one day, Heriberto got sick. He had a sore throat, a cough, and a fever. 9 hours into his shift, he couldn't take it anymore and decided to ask for permission to leave work. Urasawa fired him on the spot.
Entonces, cuando él me dijo eso, pues me sentí bastante. Yo no me sentía capaz de trabajar.
So when he said that, I felt I didn't feel capable of working. So I left. I gathered my knives and I went back home in very bad shape, really. But from there, well, I felt like what he did was wrong. I had a feeling that it wasn't right.
After Urasawa laid him off, he was devastated and also upset at what happened. He asked around and a friend told him to ask for help at a local organization, the Koreatown Immigrant Workers Alliance, KIWA. So he did.
Me dieron un papel donde describía todos los derechos de los trabajadores.
They gave me a paper that described all of the rights that workers have, that you have to respect. Overtime, lunch breaks, or there were things in there like after 4 hours of work, you have to give the worker a 10 or 15-minute break. So when I saw that, and I compared it with where I was working, they didn't have any of those rights. They didn't respect them where I worked. So that's when really I decided to say something about all of it.
Heriberto's experience is not unique. Some have called Los Angeles the wage theft capital of the U.S. Employers violate the law and pocket money that should be going to workers for hours they worked, overtime, paid time off, and required breaks and lunchtime. In fact, every week in Los Angeles County alone, workers lose $26.2 million in wage and hour violations. The food industry is one of the largest and fastest growing sectors of the economy, with over 10 million workers. But it's also the lowest paying employer in America. Almost half of the workers don't receive pay when they work overtime. A third do things under time pressure that might harm the health and safety of the consumer. Most don't have sick days, vacation days, or health insurance, and almost 2/3 have come into work sick.
So Heriberto decided to take his case to the California Labor Commissioner, which handles these kind of workplace violations. To add pressure, Heriberto and KIWA organized an action in front of the restaurant. They set up a press conference in front of the Lux Rodeo Drive steps, along with workers from across the city. They even brought a Korean drumming troupe and huge papier-mâché puppets. This was the first time that Heriberto had been back to the restaurant in over a year since they had fired him.
Y sí, pues iba nervioso de que yo sabía que en la plaza, en ese lugar, todos los trabajadores.
I was nervous because all of the workers in that building knew me. The janitors, the security guards, the restaurant workers. We all knew each other. And I thought, what are they going to think of me when they see me show up with all these people and making all this noise? At first I felt scared that something could happen. About 2 minutes before it was my turn to speak before the press, my phone rang, and it turned out to be my dad calling from Mexico. And because up to this point, he didn't know that I had filed a claim, I told him, hey, I'm busy because I'm at a protest at my job. And he says, who are you with? And I say, with KIWA. And he says, with KIWA? I had a case with KIWA in '98, he tells me. And we won it. So go for it. Good luck.
Fue algo que de un ratito a otro se me juntó y que me sorprendían las cosas que me decían. No, pues sigue ahí, sigue aquí.
It was like from one moment to another, things were coming together. And the things that people were telling me surprised me. Everyone at KIWA supported me. There were kids that were shouting out in support, and I'm really grateful to them. Because what can you do to a child? You can't do anything. I felt supported because I knew I wasn't alone. Even if he came out of the restaurant, he couldn't hurt me, because that would be breaking even more laws if he acted out aggressively.
With support from his father and from the workers around him, Heriberto stepped up to the podium, and he told his story. That day, his story appeared all over local TV and newspapers.
Sí, es difícil. carearse con la persona que a uno ha trabajado.
It's difficult to come face to face with a person that you've worked with. There are times you feel upset and you say, how could he have done this to me? And I can't do anything. But more than anything, you have to keep calm. Keep calm and set a goal for yourself by saying, I'm going to win this. I'm going to win this. And yes, that's how you win. Even if they are the most expensive restaurants and the most powerful people, they can't bend the laws. Because if they're committing a crime, it's still a crime, and they're going to have to pay for it.
Finally, Heriberto received his first payment in back wages. He won his case. In addition, he won a claim for the other workers who worked alongside him. The labor commissioner investigated the restaurant and ordered Urasawa to pay a fine of over $27,000 and to pay 3 workers over $38,000 in overtime. Heriberto would come across people that told him that his action had tainted him, that he would never be able to work in the city again. Heriberto disagreed.
Le digo, ¿por qué no me van a dar trabajo? Si yo sé que sé trabajar. Sí, no. Le digo, lógico que en un lugar donde no respetan las leyes, si saben.
I thought, why wouldn't they give me a job if I know how to work? Obviously, if it's a place where they don't respect the law and know about what I've done, then they won't choose me because they know I know my rights. But if it's a place where they do respect the law, they don't have a reason to be afraid of me. On the contrary, they should be happy because from the restaurant where I worked, many people know it's a very expensive restaurant where I've learned a lot. So to have this type of worker at this level would only benefit them.
And in fact, after Urasawa laid him off, it wasn't difficult for him to find work at all. He took up jobs in several critically acclaimed restaurants in Los Angeles. And he also put his knife skills to work beyond the kitchen, teaching workshops to kids and to other workers to create elaborate fruit carvings.
Más que nada eso ya lo aprendí ya personal mío, que me llamó la atención cuando a una ocasión miré una fruta así.
Mostly, I learned that on my own. It was something personal of mine that caught my attention when one time I saw a carved fruit and I liked it. I liked it, and I figured I had all the materials to do it, so that's how I started practicing and making designs. And in the end, they came out really nice. In Kiwa, I taught a class to the members with different kinds of fruit, melons, watermelons, pineapples. In that place, everyone has different talents. Well, they're all really, really smart people, and we share ideas, and that's why people don't give up.
Today, Heriberto says he wants to make sure other workers don't experience what he did. He is working alongside others to pass a wage theft ordinance in Los Angeles.
This show covered Heriberto Zamora, a member of the Koreatown Immigrant Workers Alliance, or Kiwa. Thanks to Heriberto for sharing his story with us. To learn more about Kiwa, please visit kiwa.org.
And for those of you that love to go to restaurants but want to eat ethically, you can join a national association of consumers and workers that are working to create a just food systems for all. Visit welcometable.net. There, you'll also find a National Diners Guide that lists restaurants that treat their workers well. To read more about restaurant workers in the U.S., as well as to learn about the national efforts to raise the tip minimum wage and provide sick days for workers, visit Restaurant Opportunity Center at rocunited.org.
You're listening to Rework, a program of the UCLA Labor Center and KPFK. This week's show was produced by Stephanie Retopper, Saba Wahid, Vanessa Moreno, and Clarine Ovandu Lacruz. Spanish voiceover by Pablo Mars. Music supervision by Francisco Garcia Nava. Special thanks to Henry Walton.
Until next time, rethink, rework.